There is a truth most people never want to face. You talk too much about your life. You talk about your plans. You talk about your dreams. You talk about your goals. You talk so much that your mind starts believing you've already achieved something you haven't even begun. And this single habit, this addiction to sharing, destroys more progress than failure ever will. You are not stuck because you lack talent. You are not behind because you lack opportunity. You are not slow because you lack ability. You are stuck because of noise. You are leaking energy through conversations that should have stayed private. You are giving explanations no one needs. You are telling people what you're going to do instead of becoming the person who actually does it. In a world obsessed with showing off, the real power belongs to those who move in silence. Face this. Every time you tell someone about your plans, you lose a piece of the energy required to execute them. Every explanation drains your focus. Every unnecessary detail divides your attention. And when your attention is scattered, your life becomes scattered. Winners don't announce. They don't narrate. They don't perform. They build. They execute. They stay quiet until the work is undeniable. Think about how many times you felt excited about a new idea. You told someone about it. They reacted. They praised you. They questioned you. And suddenly, the fire that felt unstoppable faded. That wasn't laziness. That was your brain tricking you. It felt rewarded just for sharing, so it no longer felt the urgency to act. In the next 90 minutes, we are going to step into a different world. A world most people fear. A world free from noise, distraction, validation, and unnecessary conversation. A world where silence becomes your strategy and results become your voice. This is not motivation. This is not hype. This is restructuring your identity from the inside out. You will learn how to live with intention, how to protect your focus, how to stop leaking energy, and how to walk through life with a level of discipline that makes you quiet, sharp, and unshakable. You will learn the art of holding your plans close. You will learn the power of revealing nothing. You will learn how silence builds pressure, and pressure builds greatness. Silence makes you unpredictable. Silence makes you stable. Silence makes you dangerous, in the best way. Silence clears the noise so your mind can finally lock in. People who talk loudly are not the strongest. They are the ones seeking reassurance. They need attention. They need validation. They need to be seen because they don't trust the work they haven't done yet. But the ones who move in silence, those who train in the dark, those who build without witnesses, those who don't need applause or approval, those are the people the world ends up respecting. Ask yourself, how much time do you waste explaining your life to people who don't matter? How much energy do you lose trying to justify your path? How many goals have died inside you because you talked about them instead of protecting them? In this journey, we will reverse that. We will rebuild your foundation. You will learn how to protect your energy. Choose what to share and what to lock away. Cut distractions. Strengthen discipline. Withstand solitude. Ignore doubt. Stay calm under pressure. And commit to a vision without announcing it. We will walk through 10 chapters of transformation, each one carving away the noise and bringing you closer to the version of yourself that acts more than it speaks. Chapter by chapter, you will learn how to protect your plans from curiosity. Remove yourself from unnecessary conversations. Build discipline behind closed doors. Cut distractions at the root. Work when no one is watching. Embrace solitude as a training ground. Stay unbothered by judgment. Lock in on your vision. And finally, win publicly because you earned it privately. You need to be sharp, silent, unstoppable. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why silence is stronger than words. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not passivity. Silence is not shyness. Silence is power. And the people who understand this are the ones who quietly build lives that others cannot ignore. Most people fear silence because it exposes them. It forces them to confront their doubts, their insecurities, and the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. So instead, they keep talking. They talk to feel important. to feel relevant, to feel seen. But talking doesn't create progress. Talking kills progress. People speak to fill the quiet, thinking the quiet is dangerous, but the quiet is where growth happens. The quiet is where clarity forms. The quiet is where purpose becomes real. And if you want to become someone unshakable, someone disciplined, someone powerful, you must learn to respect silence, because silence is stronger than words. Most people talk because they want permission to begin. They want someone to approve their dream before they dare to chase it. They want applause before effort, validation before action, and recognition before results. But people who operate at the highest level don't ask for permission. They don't narrate their life. They don't broadcast their intentions. They let their results speak first. This isn't arrogance. This is mastery. A person who moves in silence understands something essential. Energy is limited, and words drain energy faster than anything. When you talk about your goals, your mind releases the same chemicals it releases when you achieve them. That means talking makes you feel rewarded before you've earned anything. This is why so many people start with excitement and end with excuses. The reward came too early. The dopamine arrived before the discipline. The applause came before the action. Silence protects you from that trap. It keeps you hungry, focused, and grounded. When you no longer talk about everything you plan to do, you have no choice but to actually do it. When you stop narrating your life, you free your mind from the pressure of impressing others. And when you stop sharing your every step, you stop inviting opinions that weaken your confidence. Because the truth is simple. The more you speak, the more you expose your direction. And when you expose your direction, people try to influence it, question it, judge it, or challenge it. Not because they're evil, but because they speak from their own limits. Silence is your shield. It is your filter. It is your protection from the noise that destroys momentum. Think about the people you admire. The quiet ones, the focused ones, the ones who disappear for a season and come back transformed. They're not loud. They're not desperate for attention. They don't brag or announce their next move. They work, refine, build, and rise. And when they finally show up, the world cannot ignore them because the results they bring are undeniable. That is the power of silence. It turns your life into something that speaks louder than your words ever could. Talking invites doubt, distraction, and resistance. When you tell someone your dream, their reaction becomes part of your emotional world. And sometimes one careless comment slows your progress more than a month of effort can accelerate it. People will project their fears onto you. They will measure your dreams with their limitations. They will judge your ambition based on their insecurities. And if you're not grounded yet, their doubt can reshape your direction. But when you are silent, you protect your direction from being influenced by anyone else. Your goal is no longer a public conversation. Your vision is no longer a community project. Your path belongs to you, fully, privately, powerfully. Silence also builds intention. When you speak less, you think more. Your thoughts become sharper. Your decisions become cleaner. Your boundaries become stronger. People start to listen when you do speak because your words carry weight, and they carry weight because you no longer scatter them carelessly. When someone who talks constantly speaks, it blends into the noise. When someone who rarely speaks chooses to say something, people pay attention. Speech becomes a tool, not a habit. A choice, not a compulsion. A strategy, not an escape. But here is something most people never admit. Silence feels uncomfortable at first. You become aware of your thoughts. You become aware of your habits. You become aware of the emotions you've been avoiding. You feel exposed, not to others, but to yourself. And that discomfort is good, because discomfort is a sign of growth. It shows that silence is beginning to do its job. Silence forces your mind to strengthen. It forces your attention to sharpen. It forces your focus to deepen. Most people avoid silence because silence reveals the truth. But if you want to become powerful, you must learn to face yourself honestly. Silence makes you observant. You begin to see who drains you and who supports you. You start to recognize who is genuinely curious and who is simply nosy. You notice conversations that take more than they give. You notice people who only want information, not connection. You recognize energy leaks and you begin sealing them. Silence also makes you disciplined. With fewer words, you have more energy. With fewer conversations, you have more focus. With fewer distractions, you have more progress. You no longer perform for an audience. You no longer shape your identity based on people's reactions. You no longer rely on approval to move forward. Silence forces you to build identity, not image. And that is the difference between temporary confidence and permanent strength. Silence reconnects you with your intuition. It helps you hear the voice inside you, the one you've been drowning in noise. You begin to sense direction instead of forcing it. You begin to make decisions without needing external validation. You begin to trust yourself because you can finally hear yourself. Chapter 2. Protect your energy from people's curiosity. People will always want to know what you're doing. People will always ask questions. People will always be curious about your life. But curiosity is not always care, and not every question deserves an answer. The truth is simple. Most people aren't asking because they want you to win. They're asking because they want information. They want something to talk about. They want to feel involved in your life without actually supporting your growth. And if you don't learn how to protect your energy from this kind of curiosity, your focus will crumble. Your energy is your most valuable currency. Your energy is the fuel behind your goals. Your energy determines the quality of your actions. And every time you answer a question that doesn't deserve your attention, you give a piece of that energy away. You must understand something powerful. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. People often forget that access is a privilege, not a default setting. The more you allow people into your thoughts, the more you allow them into your emotional space. And the moment they step into that space, they have the power to influence you, redirect you, and drain you. This is why you must be extremely selective about what you share and who you share it with. Your focus depends on it. Your momentum depends on it. Your emotional stability depends on it. Most people ruin their progress by explaining too much. They try to prove that they're doing something meaningful. They try to justify why they're changing. They try to get approval for the path they've chosen. But the more you explain, the more you expose your doubts. And the more you expose your doubts, the easier it becomes for others to magnify them. People's curiosity isn't harmless. Curiosity can become interruption. Interruption can become distraction. Distraction can become self-doubt. It all begins with one question. So, what are you working on? To them, it's a simple question. To you, it's a test of discipline. Your answer shouldn't be a plan, a blueprint, or a detailed update. Your answer should be simple, short and closed. Something like, I'm focused on improving myself. Nothing more. Nothing less. You don't owe them more. You don't owe them access. You don't owe them your energy. Your job is not to satisfy their curiosity. Your job is to protect your mission, and the mission thrives in silence. Most people talk because they fear being misunderstood, but you must learn to be comfortable with being misunderstood. You must learn to be okay with people not knowing what you're doing. You must learn to accept that the world does not get to hear your plan until you are ready to show your results. This is emotional strength. This is discipline. This is self-respect. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your power. You take your attention back. You take your ambition back. You take your direction back. You begin to operate from a position of control instead of reaction. It's not about being cold. It's about being intentional. There is a difference between secrecy and privacy. Secrecy comes from fear. Privacy comes from strength. Secrecy hides insecurity. Privacy protects value. Secrecy avoids judgment. Privacy avoids noise. You're not hiding, you're preserving. And preservation is essential for anyone who wants to grow. Your mind needs space to think without interruption. Your goals need space to develop without opinions. Your vision needs space to breathe without comparison. And none of that can happen if you give people constant access to your progress. This is why high-level people are always private. They aren't mysterious by accident. They are mysterious by discipline. They understand that the fewer people who know, the more stable they become. They understand that curiosity from others can become pressure if they allow it. They understand that allowing too many voices into their world can corrupt the clarity they've worked so hard to build. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you lost motivation because someone reacted negatively to your dream? How many times have you slowed down because someone questioned your direction? How many times have you doubted yourself because someone planted a seed of uncertainty inside you? Those moments didn't happen because you were weak. They happened because you were unprotected. You allowed curiosity to enter your mind. You allowed opinions to shift your energy. You allowed someone's doubt to echo inside you. And once that echo begins, it takes tremendous effort to silence it. This chapter is your reminder to stop opening doors that don't need to be opened. You must learn to answer without explaining. You must learn to speak without revealing. You must learn to exist without broadcasting. The moment you stop feeding people information is the moment you begin feeding your future. The moment you withdraw your energy from shallow conversations is the moment your mind becomes sharper. The moment you stop trying to satisfy curiosity is the moment you begin satisfying your purpose. You must give yourself permission to be private. You must give yourself permission to be focused. You must give yourself permission to build without commentary. Privacy is not isolation. Privacy is preparation. It creates the conditions for excellence. It creates the foundation for consistency. It creates the mental space required to grow into the person you are becoming. And when you protect your energy, you reclaim the momentum that was stolen by conversations that never truly mattered. People will continue to ask questions. People will continue to be curious. People will continue to want access. Chapter 3. When to speak and when to stay silent. There is a moment in every person's life when they must learn a skill that separates the disciplined from the distracted, the focused from the chaotic, the successful from the ordinary. That skill is knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, because silence is not always the answer. Speech is not always the problem. The real power comes from discernment. What makes a person unstoppable is their ability to choose the right moment, the right words, and the right audience, and most importantly, the right reasons. This chapter is about learning that choice. It's about mastering the boundary between what belongs to the world and what belongs only to you. It's about understanding that silence is powerful, but strategic silence is transformational. Most people talk out of impulse, not intention. They share because they feel pressured. They reveal because they feel uncomfortable holding something inside. They answer because they fear seeming secretive. But the people who thrive at a high level speak with clarity. They speak with purpose. They speak with control. They speak only when the moment has earned their voice. Everything else is silence. If you want to rise, you must learn this balance. You must learn how to protect your vision while communicating with the world around you. You must learn how to share wisely without weakening your direction. You must learn how to open your mouth only when it strengthens your path, never when it sabotages it. And the first step is understanding the difference between intentional speech and emotional speech. Intentional speech builds momentum. Emotional speech destroys it. Most people talk emotionally. They talk because they're excited, anxious, insecure, pressured, or eager for approval. And emotional talking almost always leads to regret. You tell someone about your new idea because you're excited. You tell someone about your plan because you need validation. You tell someone your goals because you want to feel supported. But those emotions disappear, and once they're gone, you're left with the fallout. Someone's doubts, someone's opinions, someone's judgment, someone's discouragement. One careless reaction can echo in your mind for weeks. This is why you must create a rule for yourself. Do not speak out of emotion, speak out of intention. If it doesn't strengthen your purpose, it doesn't deserve your voice. This is the discipline of the focused. But choosing silence doesn't mean isolation. There are moments when speaking is necessary, wise, powerful, and even essential for your growth. The key is knowing the difference between the two. And to do that, you need a filter, a simple, powerful, unbreakable filter. A filter that keeps you from saying something you'll regret. A filter that prevents you from revealing what should remain private. A filter that protects your energy, your direction, and your momentum. That filter comes in 3 questions. Why? When? To whom? These 3 questions will save you from a lifetime of unnecessary noise. They will protect your dream while allowing you to communicate clearly when required. They will help you avoid useless conversations while ensuring you stay connected to the right people. The first question is, why? Why am I about to say this? Is it because I want approval? Is it because I feel insecure? Is it because I want attention? Is it because I don't want to seem secretive? Or is it because speaking adds value? Because sharing creates progress? Is communication necessary? If the reason is emotional, stay silent. If the reason is intentional, you may speak. The second question is, when? Even the right words at the wrong time become destructive. Timing is everything. Timing determines whether your message takes root or disappears into noise. If speaking now would distract you, derail you, or expose something too early, wait. If speaking now would strengthen clarity, alignment, or connection, proceed. The third question is, to whom? Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not everyone can hold your vision. Not everyone is equipped to understand your path. You must learn to distinguish trustworthy ears from careless ones. Some people listen to support you. Others listen out of curiosity. Others listen out of envy. And others listen with the subtle hope that you fail. Your words need a safe place to land. And if the person in front of you cannot provide that safety, they don't deserve the privilege of hearing your intentions. When you combine these 3 filters, why, when, to whom, you begin to operate with clarity instead of impulse. You begin to speak with precision instead of emotion. You begin to communicate like someone who knows where they're going. And that is what separates the focused from the unfocused. But applying this filter requires courage, because silence is not always comfortable. Sometimes staying silent makes you feel misunderstood. Sometimes refusing to explain yourself feels like you're being distant or cold. Sometimes holding back information makes you feel like you're keeping secrets. But you must understand something powerful. You don't owe anyone clarity about your life. You owe yourself protection. Your dreams are not public property. Your process is not open for discussion. Your progress is not something you must justify. Some things belong exclusively to the version of you that is still growing. Quietly, privately, intentionally. There is a version of you that will only emerge if you protect yourself from unnecessary conversations. And speaking too often, too openly, or too emotionally suffocates that version. You must give yourself permission to remain silent when it matters most. Silence while you're building. Silence while you're healing. Silence while you're learning. Silence while you're evolving. Silence while you're becoming someone stronger than you were before. And when you do speak, speak with purpose. Speak with clarity. Speak with intention. Speak with conviction. Your voice carries more power when it is used sparingly. Your message becomes sharper when it is spoken at the right moment. Your presence becomes stronger when you don't waste words. The world will always be full of noise. But you don't have to add to it. You can rise above it. Chapter 4. Build discipline in a private space. There is a version of you that you haven't met yet. A stronger you, a sharper you, a more disciplined, more focused, more dangerous you. And that version of you can only be built in one place. A private space where no one is watching. Public effort looks good, but private discipline builds greatness. People love the idea of being motivated in front of others. They love the performance, the attention, the acknowledgement. But motivation is temporary. Performance fades, attention disappears, and when the audience leaves, so does their discipline. This is why your real transformation must happen away from eyes, opinions, and expectations. Your growth requires a controlled environment. Your discipline needs a protected space. Your focus needs room to breathe. When you try to grow in front of everyone, you collapse under the pressure of being seen. There is a reason elite athletes train behind closed doors. There is a reason great thinkers isolate themselves to create. There is a reason the strongest people disappear before they evolve. Growth demands privacy. When no one is watching, you stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop worrying about being judged, you stop shaping your actions around other people's reactions. In private, you meet the real you, the one who is left when the world goes silent. This is the identity you must build if you want to rise. Private discipline begins with environment. Your environment shapes your energy more than you realize. If your space is chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. If your space is loud, your thoughts become scattered. If your space is filled with distractions, your focus dissolves before it even begins. You can't build discipline in confusion. You can't build strength in noise. You can't build focus in disorder. Your environment must support your evolution. It must be clean, intentional, minimal, and centered around the person you are becoming. This is not about aesthetics. It is about mental clarity. It is about removing friction. It is about creating a space that tells your mind, we are here to grow. When your environment is structured, your mind follows. A private space is not only physical, it is also mental. You need a mental room where you can retreat, recharge, and realign. A psychological zone where distractions cannot enter. Where no criticism, no noise, no doubt can break your focus. This inner room must be guarded with discipline. You must protect this space. You must honor this space. You must return to it daily. Because discipline grows through consistency, not intensity. It's built in repetitive, unglamorous, unseen moments. It's built in the early mornings before anyone wakes up. It's built in the quiet nights when others are relaxing. It's built in the everyday decisions no one applauds. People want the reward without the repetition. They want the results without the rituals. They want the breakthrough without the boring parts. But discipline doesn't happen in the highlight moments. Discipline happens in the hidden ones. A private space helps you create rituals that shape your identity. Rituals that tell your mind what to do, even when motivation disappears. Rituals that anchor your behavior when emotions shift. Rituals that make hard things feel normal. You need a ritualized morning. You need a ritualized work process. You need a ritualized night routine. Consistency is not natural. It must be engineered. You must create systems that remove decisions, systems that reduce friction, systems that keep you aligned even when you don't feel like showing up. The fewer decisions you make, the more disciplined you become. Discipline collapses when life becomes cluttered. But in a private space, your space, you control every variable. You choose what stays and what goes. You choose what matters and what doesn't. You choose what enters your mind and what gets blocked out. This is why your private space is sacred. It is where you practice becoming the person who can execute on your dreams. It is where your standards rise. It is where your identity shifts. It is where excuses die and focus is born. There is something powerful about training in silence. When no one is there to praise you, you learn to praise yourself. When no one is there to push you, you learn to push yourself. When no one is there to witness your grind, you learn that the grind is for you, not for approval. This is identity-level discipline. This is how real transformation begins. Your private space is also where you confront your weaknesses. You face your laziness. You face your distractions. You face your excuses. You see yourself clearly, without filters, without performance. This honesty is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You cannot improve what you refuse to face. In private, you learn how to manage your impulses. You learn how to delay gratification. You learn how to stay steady even when you feel overwhelmed. You learn how to push through resistance without an audience to cheer you on. Chapter 5. Cut the noise before it cuts your focus. Noise is the silent killer of progress. Noise destroys more dreams than failure ever will. Noise slowly weakens your discipline until you no longer recognize yourself. And the most dangerous part is this. Noise doesn't feel like danger. It feels normal. Noise looks like notifications. Noise looks like gossip. Noise looks like endless scrolling. Noise looks like conversations that drain you instead of strengthening you. Noise looks like entertainment disguised as inspiration. But the truth is simple. If you don't cut the noise will cut your focus. You can't build a meaningful life if your mind is constantly interrupted. You can't build discipline when your attention is scattered in 100 directions. You can't become powerful if you're addicted to distraction. Distraction is not just a habit. Distraction is a trap. It's engineered to keep you passive, reactive, and unfocused. It keeps you from thinking deeply. It keeps you from pursuing your goals. It keeps you from hearing your own intuition. And the more distracted you become, the easier you are to control. Noise takes your life 1 minute at a time. And most people don't notice until years have passed. You must reclaim your focus. You must reclaim your attention. You must reclaim your mind. And that begins with cutting the noise. Noise comes from the outside, but its real danger is what it triggers on the inside. When you allow noise to constantly enter your mind, you lose the ability to focus for long periods. You lose the ability to think clearly. You lose the ability to stay grounded in your purpose. Your attention becomes fragmented. Your mind becomes restless. Your spirit becomes exhausted. This is why you must protect your focus as if your future depends on it. Because it does. Noise is addictive. The world is designed to keep you distracted. Apps are built to steal your attention. Platforms are built to trap your mind. Everything is designed to keep you scrolling, consuming, reacting, and comparing. The modern world doesn't reward silence. It rewards stimulation, but stimulation kills focus. And focus is the foundation of discipline. You cannot unlock your potential if you're constantly stimulating your brain with things that don't matter. If you want to rise, you must create a life where your mind can breathe. The first step is identifying your noise. Who drains you? What distracts you? What steals your time? What triggers your emotions? What pulls your attention away from your goals? You cannot eliminate what you refuse to acknowledge. Once you identify your noise, you must cut it without hesitation. Unfollow people who add no value. Mute conversations that steal your peace. Turn off notifications that interrupt your flow. Delete apps that manipulate your attention. Say no to social invitations that derail your momentum. Focus is not a gift. Focus is a choice, and that choice requires sacrifice. You can't keep everything and expect to stay focused. You must choose what stays. You must choose what goes. You must choose what matters. People who achieve extraordinary results aren't lucky. They simply eliminated everything that wasn't aligned with their purpose. Your brain needs silence to think. Your spirit needs silence to recover. Your creativity needs silence to grow. Your intuition needs silence to speak. Without silence, your mind becomes a battlefield of noise you cannot escape. When you cut the noise, you begin to notice your own thoughts again. You begin to hear your own voice. You begin to connect with your own desires instead of being influenced by the desires of the world. This is why silence is not optional. Silence is essential. Noise keeps you reactive. Silence makes you intentional. Noise keeps you scattered. Silence makes you sharp. Noise keeps you weak. Silence makes you powerful. Your next level requires a quieter environment. It requires fewer distractions, fewer interruptions, and fewer pointless conversations. It requires stronger boundaries, sharper decisions, and more intentional habits. You must learn to treat your focus like gold. Because it is. Focus creates mastery. Focus builds consistency. Focus produces results, and nothing destroys focus faster than noise. So you must build routines that reduce noise at the root. Start your day in silence before the world wakes up. Spend the first hour on yourself, not on your phone. Practice deep work sessions without checking notifications. Create time blocks where your attention belongs to you and no one else. When you structure your environment, you structure your mind. And when you structure your mind, your life begins to change. Cutting noise is not just about removing distractions. It's about raising your standards. You stop giving your attention to anything that doesn't deserve it. You stop feeding energy into habits that drain you. You stop participating in conversations that lower your frequency. You stop allowing the world to interrupt your purpose. Every distraction you eliminate is a step toward becoming the person you are meant to be. Every boundary you set is a declaration of your worth. Every moment of silence is an investment in your future. Ask yourself, how much time have you lost to meaningless noise? How many goals have you delayed because your mind was too busy? How many dreams have you abandoned because you were too distracted to pursue them? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, good. Because discomfort is the beginning of change. This is your wake-up call. Your focus is dying in the noise. Your potential is suffocating. Your mind is begging for clarity, and the only way to reclaim it is through discipline. Silence the noise. Silence the distractions. Silence the world when necessary, and let your focus rise. Chapter 6. Work when no one is watching. There is a kind of strength that can't be faked, a kind of discipline that can't be performed, a kind of power that doesn't need an audience. That strength appears in the moments no one sees. That discipline grows in the hours no one knows about. That power is built in private, long before the world ever witnesses the results. This is the foundation of greatness. You must work when no one is watching. Most people want transformation, but they want it to be seen. They want recognition, validation, and applause for their effort. They want people to notice their progress, cheer for their consistency, admire their dedication. And because of this, their discipline becomes a performance instead of a standard. But performance doesn't build a strong mind. Performance doesn't build an unbreakable identity. Performance doesn't create real results. Real transformation happens behind closed doors, when there's no motivation, when there's no approval, when there's no audience, when there's no applause. Only you, your habits, your decisions, your standards, your commitment. That is where your true self is formed. Anyone can look disciplined when others are watching, but very few people can maintain discipline when the room is empty, when the reward is far away, when the only person holding them accountable is themselves. This is what separates the average from the exceptional. Working when no one is watching forces you to confront who you really are. It shows you your weaknesses. It reveals your excuses. It exposes the parts of you that rely on external pressure instead of internal standards. And this truth is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Because until you face that version of yourself, you cannot rise above them. The world teaches you to chase external validation. Social media rewards you for showing effort, not doing the real work. People praise visible progress, not invisible sacrifice. But the world will never praise you into greatness. Greatness is not achieved through attention. It is achieved through discipline. You must learn to build alone. You must learn to grind in silence. You must learn to move without applause. This is where real power forms. The strongest people in the world have one thing in common. They don't need to be watched to stay consistent. They don't need motivation to begin. They don't need praise to continue. They don't need approval to finish. Their discipline comes from identity, not from the eyes around them. They know that the work done in private becomes the results displayed in public. But most people get this backwards. They want the results immediately. They want the recognition before the effort. They want the outcome without the isolation. They want the reward without the repetition. They want to be seen before they've earned the right to be noticed, and that mindset kills progress, because transformation is not glamorous. It is not visible. It is not comfortable. It is not exciting. It is boring. It is repetitive. It is slow, it is quiet, it is lonely. And very few people are willing to embrace that level of solitude. But if you want to rise, you must. You must learn to work when no one texts you. Work when no one checks on you. Work when no one acknowledges your effort. Work when no one cares if you show up. Work when the world is asleep. Work when your motivation disappears. Because that is the difference between someone who tries and someone who transforms. Working in private strengthens your identity in ways public effort never can. It makes discipline a habit instead of a performance. It makes consistency a lifestyle instead of a challenge. It makes effort an expectation instead of an event. When you repeatedly show up alone, something powerful happens inside you. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop relying on emotion. You stop needing external pressure. You stop seeking an audience. You begin to understand that your goals belong to you and only you. This is how you build inner strength. This is how you build self-respect. This is how you build unshakable momentum. There is a level of work that can only happen when the world is quiet. In silence, you can hear your thoughts. In silence, you can push yourself harder. In silence, you can connect with your purpose. In silence, you can focus with laser precision. In silence, you can confront your limits and break them. Noise distracts, silence refines, and refinement requires solitude. When no one is watching, you discover what you are truly capable of. You discover the level of effort you've been avoiding. You discover the discipline you've been neglecting. You discover the potential you haven't accessed yet. This potential wakes up only in solitude. Private work also removes pressure. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to perform. You don't have to compare. You don't have to prove anything. You work because it matters. You work because it aligns with who you want to become. You work because the future you deserve depends on it. And when you build in private long enough, something extraordinary happens. The results become impossible to ignore. The world will look at you and say it happened suddenly. But nothing about it was sudden. The world will say it was luck. But nothing about it was luck. The world will say it must have been easy. But nothing about it was easy. You built it alone. You earned it alone. You worked for it alone. And now the results speak for you louder than any explanation ever could. This is the power of private discipline. This is the power of working in silence. This is the power of effort no one sees. Chapter 7. Learn to embrace solitude to break through. There comes a point in your life when you must step away from everything familiar. Not because you are failing, not because you are lost, but because growth requires distance and breakthroughs require solitude. Most people fear being alone because solitude reveals the truth. It forces you to hear your thoughts without distraction. It forces you to face the doubts you've been avoiding. It forces you to confront the habits you've been hiding behind. Silence doesn't expose your weakness. Silence exposes your potential. Solitude is not isolation. Solitude is elevation. It is the environment where your identity reshapes itself, where your mind sharpens, where clarity emerges. In solitude, you finally hear the voice that has been trying to guide you for years, the voice drowned out by noise, opinions, and constant stimulation. Most people stay stuck because they never give themselves enough space to evolve. They stay surrounded by the same conversations, the same distractions, the same expectations. They stay connected to everything except their own future. But if you want to rise, you must disconnect long enough to reconnect with yourself. Solitude helps you recognize what strengthens you and what drains you. You begin to see the patterns you've repeated for too long. You begin to understand what truly matters and what never mattered at all. This kind of clarity cannot be found in noise. In solitude, you meet the real you, the one behind the performance, behind the expectations, behind the pressure to impress. You discover your true values, your fears, your desires, your capacity. You discover the version of yourself you've been too busy to acknowledge. This is why you must not run from solitude. You must run toward it. Solitude teaches you emotional strength. When you stop relying on others to fill your emptiness, you become whole. When you stop seeking constant connection to feel valuable, you become grounded. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you become powerful. People who fear solitude are often controlled by their environment. People who embrace solitude control themselves. Solitude also builds discipline. Without external eyes watching, you must confront your true level of commitment. Do you show up only when someone is looking? Or do you show up because you said you would? The person who is consistent in solitude becomes unstoppable in the world. Solitude gives you space to refine your standards. You begin to eliminate what no longer aligns with who you want to become. You begin to expect more from yourself. You begin to raise the bar quietly and confidently. And as your standards rise, your life rises with them. Breakthroughs do not happen in crowds. They happen in the quiet moments when you finally see yourself clearly enough to change. They happen when you are honest enough to admit what needs to improve. They happen when you stop running and start reflecting. Growth requires privacy. Reinvention requires silence. Transformation requires solitude. And when you eventually return to the world, you return different, calmer, sharper, stronger, more intentional. People will sense it before they see it. They will notice your confidence. They will notice your clarity. They will notice a shift they cannot explain. But they won't understand what happened. Because they weren't there with you in the silence where everything changed. Embrace solitude. It is the doorway to your breakthrough. Chapter 8. Stay calm. When others doubt or criticize you. At some point, people will question you. They will criticize your silence, misunderstand your focus, or feel threatened by your growth. This is a natural part of rising, and your greatest strength in these moments is calmness. Staying calm when others doubt you is not weakness. It is mastery. It means you no longer react emotionally to noise. It means you no longer let insecurity shape your behavior. It means you know who you are and where you're going. People doubt what they don't understand. When you move quietly, they assume you're lost. When you protect your energy, they assume you're hiding something. When you stop explaining yourself, they assume you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. You've become intentional. The truth is simple. Their doubt is not about you. Their criticism is not about you. Their discomfort with your silence is not about you. It is about their own limitations and their own fears. Do not absorb what does not belong to you. When someone questions your path, do not defend yourself. When someone misunderstands your focus, do not explain. When someone tries to provoke a reaction, do not give them one. Silence is not surrender. Silence is self-control. The moment you react emotionally, you hand your power away. You validate their misunderstanding. You drain energy that should be used for your growth. You shift from building to proving, from evolving to performing. You are not here to perform, you are here to rise. Criticism becomes dangerous only when you allow it inside your mind. Doubt becomes powerful only when you repeat it to yourself. Judgment becomes heavy only when you carry it. You must develop emotional boundaries. You must protect your inner space. Staying calm does not mean you agree. It does not mean you accept their perspective. It means you choose not to let their perspective shape your direction. You stay grounded in your purpose, your vision, your standards. Calmness is presence. Calmness is strength. Calmness is clarity. The calmer you become, the harder you are to manipulate. The calmer you become, the harder you are to provoke. The calmer you become, the more intimidating your silence feels to others. People expect reactions. Do not give them what they expect. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. Your results will correct them later. When you stay calm, you conserve energy for the things that matter. You stay connected to your purpose. You maintain control over your emotions. And slowly, you rise above the noise. One day, the same people who doubted you will ask how you did it, and you won't need to say a word. your transformation will speak for itself. Stay calm, stay silent, stay focused, and let your results speak louder than any argument ever could. Chapter 9. Lock into your vision and never look away. At some point in your life, you must choose what your future is truly about. Not what others expect, not what the world wants, not what fear allows. Your life changes the moment you lock into a vision and refuse to look away. A clear vision is not a dream. It is direction. It is identity. It is a promise you make to the future version of yourself. Most people never experience the power of clarity. They jump from one goal to another, chasing whatever feels exciting in the moment. Their ambition shifts weakly. Their focus collapses under pressure. Their energy scatters into a dozen unfinished paths. You cannot rise if your vision changes every time your emotions change. A strong vision simplifies your life. It tells you what matters and what doesn't. It tells you what to walk toward and what to walk away from. It eliminates hesitation, confusion, and wasted movement. Once you commit to your vision, everything else must adjust to it. When you lock in, distractions lose their power, opinions lose their influence, noise loses its weight. You no longer need motivation, because direction becomes its own fuel. A person with a clear vision wakes up differently. They move differently. They think differently. They say no differently. The reason so many people never reach their potential is not lack of effort, but lack of alignment. They work hard, but toward the wrong things. They want everything, which means they commit to nothing. Focus begins with elimination. To lock into your vision, you must remove the unnecessary. Remove the goals that don't belong to you. Remove the expectations placed on you. Remove the habits that weaken you. Remove the people who pull you off your path. Your vision will demand sacrifice. Sacrifice of comfort. Sacrifice of old identities. Sacrifice of old routines. This is where most people stop. This is where you continue. Because when your vision is strong enough, sacrifice doesn't feel like loss. It feels like alignment. People will question your direction. People will misunderstand your silence. People will doubt the path you're willing to walk alone. Let them. Your vision wasn't given to them. It was given to you. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for the life you are building. The deeper your commitment, the quieter you become. You stop announcing plans. You stop seeking approval. You stop defending your ambition. You understand something most people never will. A locked-in mind does not need an audience. Your vision becomes the standard you measure everything against. Does this strengthen my future? Does this weaken my direction? Does this move me closer or pull me away? If the answer is no, you walk away. Calmly, quietly, decisively. This is how breakthroughs happen. This is how identity shifts. This is how transformation becomes inevitable. Because once your vision becomes your anchor, the world can push you, distract you, tempt you, but it cannot move you. You're no longer searching, you are building. You're no longer hoping, you are becoming. Lock into your vision, guard it fiercely, feed it daily, and never look away. Chapter 10. Public victory comes from private standards. There is one truth that will follow you for the rest of your life. Your public victories are built in private, long before anyone sees them. People will celebrate your success later, but they will never fully understand the discipline, effort, silence, and self-mastery that made it possible. That is why your private standards matter more than anything you display publicly. Public results come from private rituals. Public confidence comes from private struggle. Public strength comes from private discipline. Everything you do behind closed doors writes the story the world eventually reads. Most people want success, but they want it with an audience. They want motivation, applause, and recognition for their effort. They want to look disciplined rather than be disciplined. But the quiet truth is this: your life only rises to the level of the standards you set in private. If your private standards are weak, your results will be weak. If your standards change based on emotion, your progress will change with it. If you only work hard when people are watching, you will never reach your potential. Success doesn't require perfection. Success requires standards. Standards that don't bend when you're tired. Standards that don't break when you're stressed. Standards that don't disappear just because no one would know the difference. Your private standards are your backbone. They are what keep you moving when motivation dies. They are what keep you consistent when no one checks on you. They are what make discipline feel natural instead of forced. And here is what most people miss. Your standards are not rules. Your standards are your identity. When you raise your standards, you upgrade who you are. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop relying on emotional bursts. You stop performing for approval. You start doing the work because it aligns with the kind of person you want to become. Every transformation begins with this internal shift. People will often credit your rise to talent or luck. But the truth is simple. You prepared quietly while they were distracted. You sharpened your discipline while they waited for motivation. You kept going while they quit. This is the quiet advantage of private standards. Private standards also protect you emotionally. When you expect more from yourself than others expect from you, criticism loses power. When you hold yourself accountable, no one else can threaten your progress. When your internal voice is stronger than the world's noise, outside opinions become irrelevant. That is when you become unstoppable. Your standards also determine the quality of your decisions. Every choice you make either aligns with the person you're becoming or pulls you back to who you used to be. When your standards are high, your choices must rise to meet them. You stop settling. You stop tolerating low-effort habits. You stop engaging in distractions that don't serve you. You start living with intention. And over time, something powerful happens. Your standards begin to shape your destiny. Your body changes because your habits changed. Your environment changes because your boundaries changed. Your relationships change because your energy changed. Your future changes because you changed. People will notice. People will ask questions. People will wonder how you became so focused, so calm, so sharp. But they will never truly understand. Because the work happened in silence. Because the discipline happened when no one watched. Because the transformation happened in moments you never posted, never shared, never announced. That is the beauty of private standards. They make your public life look effortless. But nothing about your journey was effortless. It was earned, quietly, consistently, intentionally. If you want to rise, if you want to win loudly, you must first commit to winning privately. Raise your standards, build your discipline, honor your silence. Hold yourself to a code the world will never see. And when the time is right, your results will speak for you louder than anything you could ever say. You've reached the end of this audiobook, but the real beginning is right now, because nothing in your life will change from listening alone. Your life will change when you start living what you've learned. You've walked through silence, discipline, privacy, focus, emotional control, and the power of building yourself away from noise. Every chapter was designed to strip away the habits, beliefs, and distractions that kept you small and rebuild you into someone sharper, calmer, more intentional. Now you understand something most people never will. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to explain your vision. You don't need approval to evolve. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strategy. Silence is strength. And when you choose to move quietly, you reclaim control over your energy, your time, and your identity. That control is the foundation of every transformation you want. From this moment forward, you have one responsibility. Protect what you're becoming. That means protecting your focus from distractions, protecting your goals from opinions, protecting your peace from unnecessary conversations, protecting your energy from people who don't understand your path. You owe nothing to the world except the results you decide to create. The people around you may not understand your silence. They may question your distance. They may misunderstand your discipline. Let them. You're not building for their applause. You are building for your future. And your future requires a version of you who is done talking about change and fully committed to becoming the change. No more explaining, no more announcing, no more performing, just action, just discipline, just quiet, consistent growth. Because the truth is simple. The world remembers results, not announcements, not intentions, not noise. Move in silence. Build in silence. Rise in silence. And when the time is right, your results will speak louder than anything you could ever say.